How does a man get to a point in his life where he decides, I want to be a good man, I want to be a good husband, I want to be faithful, I want to honor my vows, I uphold certain values in my life and I don't back down from that, I don't compromise no matter what everybody else is doing around me, no matter how much pressure I may get from other people, from associations? How do you decide, I am determined to be a good man?
My first number one, God. I think it's something that just God has to work inside you. I said this a couple of days ago that it has to be. If faithfulness is not in you, then it's not in you. And I think just to share some backstory, babe, and you know this already. I'm sorry, I got to sit up a little bit. 'Cause I'm about to preach. You know this already, but I hit a point in my life months before, maybe like a year or so before we met, where I started to have the desire to get married again. Because prior to that, I just never, ever wanted to get married, ever. Never, ever again. I just didn't. That's a whole different topic. But I had the desire to get married, but I didn't have. But then what God started to show me was I didn't have the lifestyle to get married, and so over the
Mindset.
the
And
lifestyle,
lifestyle too.
mindset, because
Okay.
I was living a single,
Both.
everything. And so one of the things that I believe that when I say God is that God showed me the real me. And I remember one day waking up, looking in the mirror, and saying to myself, yo, you a dog. You're a nice guy, but you're a dog. And just thinking about some things I did in the past and so forth and so on, it's like I remember that moment because, like, God, I don't want to be that guy anymore, because that guy or these type of guys, they hurt people unintentionally. You can be a nice guy, oh my God, he's so sweet, but it doesn't mean that I wasn't causing damage. And so I remember that moment. I'm like, God, I don't want to be that guy no more. And God doesn't take it away instantly. Obviously,
So it
God.
started with you looking at yourself.
At myself in the mirror, yeah. It's like I looked at some of my habits and some of my actions. See, one of the things about being in business and having any type of success or popularity in your life, those successes can cover character issues. The only people who really see
Say that again. Ray.
See,
Say that again.
being popular or successful in any area of life can cover a bunch of character issues, because we live in a society where, oh my God, look at what he did, not who he is.
Amen.
And the thing that God began to do to me is he began to show me who I am. In that moment in the mirror, he was like, yo, your heart may have good intentions, but all of your actions are doggish. And so that was one of the aha moments I had. And it was about
So
six.
there was an alignment that had to start.
Exactly. Before I met you.
place.
Correct. There was an alignment. One of the greatest things that I think.
And I got to witness some of it.
Oh, absolutely. You were
Because
there.
we started out, we were fun buddies.
This is what I
Let's just say we were fun
do
buddies.
to get you in the mood.
Let
My
me say
bad.
this real quick.
My mind's.
Bay. So, so I remember when we moved from fun buddies to, I'm growing up, and no matter how much I like you, I just don't want to do both. It's funny, both of us got to that point. But and this is kind
But say what I
this
said
is
to
kind
you.
of personal. Let me say this.
Sorry,
This
go
is
ahead,
kind of
go ahead,
personal,
go ahead.
right? So because we were fun buddies, with that, what that meant.
We was
So-
bump and grind.
Hey, so
Go ahead.
what I'm not proud of at all. I'm not proud of, but it's the truth, and I don't.
I'm not proud of it either.
I don't lie. So anyway, so I remember, and I didn't even think this was capable for a man. I remember you literally pushing me off of you. Now we already had a connection at that point, so I'm
Lord
like,
have mercy, yes we did.
well, what is this? Is he really just pushing me?
Yeah,
away?
I remember. I remember the night. It was hard as hell.
Pardon the pun.
Sorry.
But anyway, so it's funny that both of us, it's interesting that both of us made a decision around that time. Like, no, I personally in
Yeah.
my life was like,
Yeah.
I'm better than this. You personally in your life.
Yeah.
But we did start to sense it even before that point.
Correct.
Even
Absolutely.
before that point. But anyway, so I just want to point that out real quick. That it's possible for a man to control himself
Yeah.
because he has decided I have a certain standard for myself, and because I respect and value myself
Right.
and my character is important to me.
Right.
But I wanted you to talk a little bit about something that I don't think I've ever heard you talk about publicly,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very important for men. You know, men don't tend to really. I'll just say it's not always easy for a man to really look at himself and be honest about himself and be open up about the growth that needs to take place, his hurts, his disappointments, and what makes him who he is. So, what I find interesting is that you didn't have good male
Role
examples
Yeah.
to look up to, and yet you made a decision specifically.
You know,
I can think of 3 men that were closest to you in your life, and they were everything that is considered a bad example.
correct.
And yet you decided that you wanted to be different.
You know,
And he's very strong-willed. When he makes up his mind, it's done.
let me say this, and this just came to me. I remember seeing my mother cry. And I think somewhere subconsciously, as I went through this process of maturing, I remember saying to God, if you bring me a wife, the energy that I put into my business, I'm going to put into my marriage and put into her.
Tell
And
me
s-
what that did to you, seeing your mother cry. I apologize for
It's okay,
interrupting you
it's
there,
all right.
But I think that's important. How old were you? Do you remember?
Oh, it was multiple times. I mean,
Okay.
it was multiple times. I mean, up until my teenage years. I hit a point where I never wanted to put a woman through that ever again. This is before we met. I never wanted that shame. Because, and I don't talk about cheating a lot because I just think as we get older, we need to talk about different subjects. But remembering those feelings as a young man, and then as I got older, I caused them feelings over time to different individuals. I hit a point where it was like, enough is enough. Enough is enough. Like, enough of the BS, enough of the games, enough of the, grow the F up, period.
Because for most of us, male or female, until you reach a certain degree of maturity, you're selfish. Selfish and
I've been
immaturity
exactly
always go hand in hand.
And I've been saying that for years because people talk about cheating. At the end of the day, I don't care what you put on it. Cheating is selfishness. You want what you want in that moment, and maturity is teaching me and has taught me to deny what your body may want in that moment for the one you profess your love to, the one you made a vow to. And that's something that, I mean, even to this day, I'm still learning because it goes beyond the superficial of cheating. I'm talking about if I get up in the morning, I make myself a cup of coffee, and I don't make you a cup of coffee, to me,
You wouldn't do that.
well, of course I wouldn't. But these little habits carry over and become major issues. It's all selfishness.
Even though you would not do that because you typically, every single day without fail. But when we've gone through our challenging times, he still makes my coffee. He still makes my coffee.
Listen. I'm gonna say that there was times we had some bang outs. I mean, some bang outs. And I wake up in the morning and I'm mad as hell. I'm telling God I'm not making her no coffee. And God is like, you made a vow. That's your wife. That's my daughter. Begrudgingly, put the sugar in it. Put a cream in it just like she like it. One time, I left the coffee on the table. I'm like, she got to come in here and get this coffee. Got it, because I'm not bringing it to her. He said, take it to my daughter. I took it to him. Every morning for the past, maybe missing 5.
He still gets dinner.
Oh, dinner.
He still
Listen,
gets
and this is,
loving.
I don't care how
Loving
upset
and
we
not.
get. If I'm in the mood, she gonna give it to me. Point blank in the story. She don't withhold. And so there's this balance that we have that I believe comes with maturity. So when we start talking about,
So, can I
Go ahead, go ahead.
interrupt for a second, honey? Because I really know you have a lot of, what I want you to say is so important. I don't want to, I don't want to miss it. So, what were the characteristics and the behaviors that you saw in the men who were very close to you, who were not great examples, and what was that? What's that like growing up as a man? Because that had to shape and mold what you thought being a man is about.
well, the closest example that I had to me at the time was probably my stepfather. Growing up as a young man, and I mean, and honestly, even my biological father, God rest his soul, one of the things I remember, he would come and pick me up on weekends until he just stopped and he just disappeared. But that's a different topic. But I remember going from girlfriend house to girlfriend house. And I remember this, one of his girlfriends at the time, her name was Sharon, and she would always make these homemade apple pies. And so I would go over there, and we would sit there and the crust and everything and make these big apple pies. And she was always very sweet to me. But then I remember leaving, going somewhere else, and being instructed
Another woman.
to another woman's house and being instructed, don't talk about what you and Sharon did. And this is me looking back because I didn't realize it
And you
back.
got lots of stories.
Oh, yeah, I got tons of stories. Looking back at it, it taught me how to be sneaky. For all intents and purposes, all of the men at that time in my life all had this insatiable lust that women were objects.
They were womenizers. They were.
Correct. And so,
And I don't say that to put them down.
no, I'm not, no.
I just want to call it
I'm trying,
exactly
right.
clear
Well, I'm
exactly
trying to be,
what it was.
right. And I'm,
Because there's people that, that's
yeah,
their
because,
thing.
and I'm trying to talk about the issue because I'm thinking about how it affected me. And so, you know what's funny? It's,
Probably didn't realize until you were much older.
yeah, I didn't realize it till I was probably almost 40 years old that I had these little habits. But I had a lot of my mother in me, so I had a lot of respect. And so I had a balance that they didn't have. But my balance still borderline was sneaky. So what I could get away with, I tried to get away with. And it wasn't until that time period where God was like, okay, I need you now to stop being sneaky and understand. You know what's funny is that when you and I met, I said to you, I don't want a relationship. I don't want to get married. I don't want a girlfriend. I'm letting you, and I was bold. I'm letting you know up front that we
You
can
didn't
have.
say it like that.
Well, I ain't say it like that. I'm just saying like.
But you just kept saying it like when.
But the whole thing was
Here's
I was
what's
okay
funny.
with having sex.
Right.
And I remember the day the thought popped in my mind was just because you're telling her it's okay to have sex does not negate the fact that you're not responsible for her soul. And that was the day I woke up with you. I'm like, okay, I'm done. Because I ain't trying to be responsible for nobody's soul. That was something I believe that God just put inside of me. And so I said that. So when I started thinking about all of the men in my past, they negated to be, all it was
The
sex.
responsibility for
Exactly.
how they were treating another human being.
Exactly. And that was the day I'm like, I don't want to treat her like that. That's why I stopped. And so to be honest with you, it is surely the grace of God. Doesn't mean I wasn't, it doesn't mean I wasn't a dog in a certain period of my life, but the maturity and now the man who's speaking now is like, yo, enough of the games. I want to be around men, married men who've been married 10, 15, 20, 30 years and listen to their stories so that as we grow, we get to 10, 15, 20, 30 years, which we are going to do. I'm just saying. That's what's in my heart now, is removing the. I remember the last time I hung out, this was maybe been about 7, 8 years ago. a group of guys got together and they were talking about going to Dominican Republic. Now everybody knows. If you don't know, I'm about to tell you now. When a bunch of men say they're going to Dominican Republic, it's just a whole fest. That's just what it is. And I remember being in a group, and I said, "No, I'm good. Like that's not what I want for my life no more. That's not what I want for my life anymore." And so it was those little things that began to step up. And then by the time you and I met,
But that's how you know. Those are signs of maturity.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely,
Because
absolutely,
you
yo.
lose certain desires.
absolutely.
And some people, I think it's important to say that because I think some people are so entangled in their or enslaved by
To
their
the desire,
desires
yeah.
that they don't even believe it's possible for some desires to just die.
And babe, I think it's so much that we just don't talk about. Like this is a big topic. You know what I'm saying? Like we're not talking about. We're just now touching the topic because I mean if this was a live and longer segment, we could talk about young boys and masturbation because it doesn't start at 30 and 40. This stuff starts at 5, 6, and 7. You know, talking about where this all started from. I remember me and my brother being maybe 8 years old. I was maybe 8 years old, going into my stepfather's cabinet, and he had Playboy. And we would rush home after school looking at Playboy. So it's all these seeds that were planted in us men over a period of time. I don't see how you can defeat it.
And on top of that, you didn't see men honoring
Exactly.
their relationships, honoring
Well,
their marriage, and their responsibilities, including the kids.
Babe,
Including the kids.
correct.
Because even the fact that you had
correct.
the father figure and then you didn't,
Correct. Honey, I'm going to be honest with you.
which is not
Most of my teenage life, I thought the more women you had, that's what made you a man. You wasn't gay.
and sadly that's what a lot of young men are
And,
taught.
and then to be honest with you, if I was around a young girls, the men who I was around at the time were praising me for it. Oh, she cute. Oh, she pretty.
Mm-hmm.
This is, you know,
It's a reality.
it's a reality.
It is.
I mean, you know, but I want to switch to here real quick. There was Jamila and I were. I think we were already in a committed boyfriend girlfriend. I don't want to say that because we grown. We were already in a committed relationship.
We had already decided.
Right. I didn't propose to her yet though. But we decided we were going to be together.
We were going to be committed to each other.
And she came over to my apartment. I had my own place. That's something else. A man needs to have it. To me, if you gonna meet me with his mama,
Don't be talking marriage with somebody that's living in his mama's house. I'm sorry.
yeah, like
Come
that's
on.
me, yo. Like I
Don't
like
get that.
yo. When we met, she came to my place. But this one, that's a different topic. This one day, she was cleaning. She was cleaning the kitchen and really, she was looking so sexy. Oh my God. Anyway, my bad. And I remember sitting on the end of the bed, and God was like, marry her or let her go. No more playing games. I'm like, what?
Because I'm God's favorite daughter. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's like, marry her or let her go. Prior to that, I had already felt like, you know what? I'm going to marry her. But I still stalled for a couple of months. But in that moment, it was like, yo, all of the fighting, all of the maturity, all of the reconstructing or the renewing of the mind came down to that moment. Like, okay, I'm giving you a woman that you asked me for. Someone who's going to be faithful to you. Someone who's going to honor you. Now, you grow up and stop playing games. Marry her because it's not fair. When you get to 35, 38, 39, 40, man, dating for 10 years, I'm sorry, that's just played out. Put a ring on the damn finger or let her go, yo.
So what is it like now for you, honey? What is it like day to day? Do you feel pressure because we live in a world that just does not have respect for the fact that there are men who are, you know, they're families. They're
Yeah.
families. Just good family values.
Yeah.
The world that we live in
I don't think
doesn't care.
It doesn't care. It
anything
doesn't care.
about
Yo,
families staying together.
it doesn't. Well, first let me say this. I don't think that the world honors the men that sacrifice like that enough. So shout out to all the men that stopped playing games. And the reason why you don't hear from them is because they have no interest in BS, and they're not on social media and making videos. I'm doing this because I feel like this is what God wants us to do. But so what is it like now?
Day to day.
You know what's crazy?
Do you feel like it's a struggle? Do you feel like it's challenging? What goes on up here?
It's definitely the most challenging thing, babe, honestly, is me shedding my selfish ways. And I say selfish not in a sense where I hold things back from you, but there's times because I've been hurt in the past through a past marriage and relationships. And I say that, but I've hurt people too. So that's not I'm not trying to play the victim. I'm just talking about in this moment.
The
Where-
consideration shifts from for me to
To-
it's just you.
to
and I'm
protecting
sort of
myself.
left- yeah,
Correct.
and
To
I'm sort of
protecting
just
myself.
left out there
Right.
emotionally.
Right. And
You've
that's so
experienced that a lot.
correct. So that's something I am
It's
continually.
you're not intentionally selfish.
No.
It's unlearning its habits.
It's a learning process.
Okay.
It's a learning process. So it's a learning process, but I think for the most part, it's not horrible. It's just I got a lot of bad habits, and I just protect myself a lot. Period.
It's interesting. They say
Period.
it takes 2 weeks to develop a habit, but yet you've had some habits that you've had for 20, 25,
20 years.
30 years.
Exactly.
So, yeah, you have to every
Exactly.
single day be mindful of certain
Exactly.
things.
Like
and
I'm extremely defensive. If you bring an issue to me, my first instinct is to defend. And so when I trace back where does that come from, I can think back in my teenage years where I always had to prove or defend myself that I wasn't this individual. You know, I have learned now, sometimes I just...
like you, there's times where you have felt like I was insulting your character.
absolutely.
The person you are.
Correct.
And in my head, I'm like, what the
Right.
heck? It's an issue.
Right.
I'm addressing an issue, something that occurred.
Right.
I still love you and think you're great and
Right.
respect you, and you're still my whole
Yeah, I
heart
got issues.
all the time. But just because something occurred,
And I'm a
I
baby.
want to talk about the thing that occurred because I'm always thinking going forward, I always want us to not allow, I'm mindful of nipping things in the bud
Correct.
rather than letting them fester
Correct.
and become bigger.
Correct.
But
Yeah.
he couldn't see that I was talking about an occurrence. He took it as I'm attacking the person
Exactly.
that he is, which was,
Exactly.
I couldn't understand because I'm like, I love you no matter what.
Marriage is what you make it, yo. Like that's what it comes down to. I think we live in an oversexed society. I think that we live in a narcissistic society. I think that we live in an age where we don't understand what a vow is. We don't understand what a promise
They don't
is.
care because selfishness
Right. I think that
is promoted all the time.
and so these are all things that I've learned and I'm continually growing and learning in to make our union one. And
it's like-
and then one of the greatest things that I've learned over time is I can't change you.
You say that.
No.
You trying to change me.
No, because I remember in the beginning, it's like, yo, like why she, and it's like, yo, you can't change her thought. You can't change her. The only thing you can do is change yourself and your response. And if what I've learned about you is if I give you a different response long enough, eventually you're like, oh, he trying, like and then you adjust.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so that's it. But I didn't have that example growing up. No one taught me to be a man or what are men supposed to do? What am I to do when I get married? So basically, most of us brothers are winging this thing as we go along.
You're learning as you go. But
Yeah.
the thing is, you're willing
Yeah, you got to be
to
willing
learn, and you're willing.
And I'm willing to look at myself first. Yes, I have blamed you for some things, but when I calm down and I realize, dude, you got issues. You know, when I calm down and I realize, look, you got to look at this from, you got to take this from
I
a
don't
different.
like to say he has issues. He likes to say.
Yeah, I do. I just say I got issues because I don't know what else to say, and I'm in a constant state of learning. I'm in a constant state of getting better every single day. But the one thing I will never, ever do, and if I got to say this on every single video, I'm never going to leave a brother out there thinking, because at the end of the day, we beat up on ourselves a lot as men. We don't say it to them or to our wives because we're trying to be this strong. But sometimes we beat up on ourselves because we don't have the career we want. We're not making the money we want. We can't buy her what she wants. And so because I beat up on myself so much, I am learning that God's grace is sufficient and my love for her is sufficient. Like, she doesn't hold me accountable to things that I can't do for her.
I'm not keeping a
A
tally.
tag, exactly.
Yeah.
But brothers, I know we beat up on ourselves. And so I say these things because it's not that, and I say I got issues, but I got a lot of freaking phenomenal qualities. Like, I am extremely consistent. I'm extremely dedicated. When I make up my mind about something, I go through it 1,000%. And that's one thing that she loves about me. That's one thing that she loves about me. So, but this is a big topic, yo. Because we can talk about sex. We can talk about how do you change your thinking and love a woman for her heart and not for her
But
body.
we gotta do a part 2 and a part 3 and probably 4 and 5.
Because y'all see I'm getting
But let
excited.
me just speak to the ladies for a quick second, and then we're gonna wrap it up. We're gonna
No
wrap it up
problem.
one time, babe. It's not church, okay?
Okay, wow,
One time, babe.
wow.
We'll wrap it up. This is something to be very mindful of. I say this all the time. The best quality that you can find in a man is a man who's willing to look at himself.
yeah.
It is not what his income is, what he's driving, what he has accomplished. Although those things do say something, be willing to look deeper.
Past, yeah, exactly.
Be willing to look deeper. He might have a car, a very nice, expensive car, and still be broke because he can't afford it and a history of repos, okay? But I don't really want to go there. My point is this. Once you have a man who's willing to look at himself, that is a selfless man. That's a man who's going to continue to mature and grow and put you first. You can't get any better than that. You cannot get any better than that. And I hate all the things that I see when women are referring to, on social media, when they're referring to, oh, girl, he's this, or stupid beards and
that's
stuff like that.
me-ish.
Okay, it's cute, it's funny, but what's not funny is how women are really, really suffering and being abused. Even the ones who aren't getting punched, they're getting emotionally and mentally so abused. Families are suffering. The kids are suffering because women
Character
are
has to
not
be sexy.
setting standards and holding to the standards.
Correct.
And I'm telling you, a man's character is
It's
everything. If he's making 6 or 7 figures and he's driving a nice car, but you're crying every night because he has somebody else who he's not going to let go, may even be a man nowadays, what good is the 7 figures? You can make 7 figures yourself. You really can if you really want to. It's not worth it. Okay, good man. That's it. Wrap us up.
Well, we'll be back on this topic because there's so much more to say. Yo, shout out to all my great brothers. Listen, share this video with somebody. We hope it helps you, blesses you. But as always, I'm Robert Ballard.
I'm Jamila Ballard, and
We are the Ballards. And just remember, you're welcome.